Your backup for me has been in the news. The person that you're constantly threatening to replace me with, who, he's got the qualities of a good host, and he's also, he's Asian, so he checks the one box that you have for a host.
Correct. 3 for 3.
Yeah, he was in the news this week. I don't know if you noticed, but in the, let's situate this in the proper context. There have been clashes in the Middle East, as you know, where as of recording, 26 Palestinians, including 9 children, massacred by Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip. Andrew Yang, candidate for the mayor of New York, in response to this horrifying violence, which includes the eviction of Palestinians from the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of East Jerusalem, an act probably best described as part of the ongoing process of ethnic cleansing in the area. The response from Andrew Yang was, let's see, quoting here, "I'm standing with the people of Israel who are coming under bombardment attacks and condemn the Hamas terrorists. The people of NYC will always stand with our brothers and sisters in Israel who face down terrorism and persevere." Put that on a math hat.
To which my co-host, the best co-host, replied,
"Oh,
I'm not."
Okay, all right. I see the pecking order has changed a little bit.
Yes, it's no longer Joseph Lee, Andrew Yang, Virgil, Texas. It's now squarely Joseph Lee, Virgil, Texas. Andrew Yang.
I'm moving on up in the world.
There's always got to give you room to strive, Virgil. We can't put you at number 1, or what would incentivize you to be your best.
I gotta say, we've been talking a little bit about the Yang mayoral campaign on this show. About how a lot of the negative coverage of him is just a lot of weird nonsense that's overlooking the actual substantive problems. And, it's this kind of fucking bullshit that's frankly taken a lot of the shine off him. Like, you can't wriggle out of this when you've made a, deliberate and frankly shameless attempt to pander to, far right.
Yeah, it's weird because some people were making the point that a lot of the other moderate Democratic candidates for mayor said basically the exact same thing, and that historically this would have been kind of a non-issue because all of them say this sort of thing to, curry favor with whatever interest groups they feel like they have to curry favor to in New York City. And no one ever, we all just take that as how the world is, but that politics have shifted and moved such that not showing solidarity with Palestinians has become a kind of, it's a litmus test of sorts on the left in a way that it wasn't before. It went from being something that, Margaret Lamont Hill can be fired from a cable news contract for, to being something that any purportedly left candidate has to embrace in just a few short years. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I still think that it's, you will get isolated for deviating from that line. And, speaking of that line, this is Ned Price at the spokesman for the State Department. And this is the Biden State Department response.
We're speaking of the principle of self-defense.
I'm asking if you think that the principle of self-defense applies to the retaliatory, the airstrikes that they're conducting in response.
Matt, this is a very fluid situation. I would hesitate to comment on operations beyond, the rocket fire that is clearly targeting innocent civilians in Israel. So I would hesitate to speak to specific operations that have just occurred. But the broader principle of self-defense is something we stand by on behalf of Israel and every other country.
Do you think that an Israeli military response to the rockets coming in, a military response to the rockets coming in is covered by this broader rubric of self-defense, right?
Self-defense often does authorize the use of force.
Thank you, Matt. I want to ask you about East Jerusalem, but let's talk about what you said about the principle of self-defense. Does that in any way apply to the Palestinians? Do they have a right to self-defense? Do Palestinians have a right to self-defense?
I'm in broadly speaking, Saeed, we believe in the concept of self-defense. We believe it applies to any state. I don't think that. I certainly wouldn't want my words to be construed as
I understand. I want
honest
to
and
ask
decent.
I don't
Right,
have to
as-
see that, but the Israelis killed 13 people just now, including maybe 5 or 6 children. Do you condemn that? Do you condemn the killing of children?
Saeed.
I'm asking, do you condemn the killing of Palestinian children?
Obviously, and these reports are just emerging, and I understand. I was just speaking to the team. I understand we don't have independent confirmation of facts on the ground yet, so I'm very hesitant to get into reports that are just emerging. Obviously, the deaths of civilians, be they Israeli or Palestinians, are something we would take very seriously.
Okay.
You can't condemn the abstraction of killing kids. The abstraction. In principle. He's like, well, I can imagine a scenario where the kids got it. Like, what is going through this man's head?
Yeah, no, it's appalling because it's there can be no deviation from from the party line on this one. And Yang's statement, I think that's for a guy who's like, oh, I'm post-partisan, it's a new kind of coalition, whatever. It's just State Department bullshit. I mean, it's pandering.
Yeah.
Nonsense from a guy who did not know what the fuck Palestine was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's funny because, it's not funny, but it's interesting because I say this without meaning this in a way that's intended to absolve Yang in any way. But it feels like he is someone who doesn't know what he's talking about at all and is non-ideological, except for the ideology being that he wants to win votes. And this is what he feels like he has to say. That doesn't make it better. It might even make it worse.
Depends how you look at it. Who's to say who's right and wrong? I mean, there's both sides to it. There've been clashes and violence. Can't really condemn either side in this matter.
But the point it is that if he's doing this for pure political reasons, if he's taking a position for pure political reasons, it's really interesting to note that he might have in fact made an awful political determination.
Yeah.
Because the sands have shifted such that the left either has more power or more media influence, or the broader public opinion outside the left has shifted enough on this issue. There's no longer the expectation that you're going to take the State Department line and that is what it is and the left just has to deal with it. Now we have enough people who aren't willing to do that there is an uproar. And what was trending, Yang condones genocide or whatever was trending last night as a hashtag on Twitter. There's legs to this.
There is, yeah. I mean, when you have a statement that is so appalling in the face of everything we've seen so far. And just to give you just a little taste of contrast here, here's Diane Morales, who's we've talked about her on the show, who's kind of the left candidate in the race. Our world needs leaders who recognize humanity and the dignity of all lives, whether in NYC, Colombia, Brazil, or Israel, Palestine. State violence is wrong. Targeting civilians is wrong. Killing children is wrong. Full stop. Still kind of, if we want to say there's a continuum here, still basically a both sidesy kind of wishy-washy statement, but at least acknowledges that state violence is wrong. Pretty similar to what, Bernie came out with. But, just to fill in the last end of that continuum, this is Ilhan Omar. Israeli airstrikes killing civilians in Gaza is an act of terrorism. Palestinians deserve protection. Unlike Israel, missile defense programs such as Iron Dome don't exist to protect Palestinian civilians. It's unconscionable not to condemn these attacks on the week of Eid.
We obviously critique everyone, including progressives on this show, but it is worth noting that shouldn't be interpreted as a kind of flattening of degrees in which there's goodness amongst them. And I do want to say that Representative Omar does tend to be just very consistent and strong on these kinds of issues, and has obviously taken her fair share of heat just for existing as a Muslim woman in Congress, and that she continues to show this kind of, temerity is it means something. It's valuable, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, that she hasn't been cowed into submission.
Yeah. I mean, it's also worth noting that since our last episode, since our New York mayoral race episode, things have shifted a little bit. Eric Adams, a.k.a. our cop candidate, was in the lead for the first time.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I mean, the headline is Yang is no longer the unequivocal front runner in the race in terms of polling.
I just looked. There's a New York Times article from May 10th called "Who's the Comeback Candidate? 5 Takeaways from the Mayor's Race," and Dianne Morales' name is not in this article. I just searched for it to see if it would tell me where she was in the ranking. She's literally not mentioned in this article, which gives me big Bernie vibes. Where they would write up, I remember, sorry, he's not like the worst, but Astide at the New York Times wrote up a whole thing about the NAACP event during the primary that every primary candidate went to. Bernie Sanders was the only candidate to get a standing ovation. He was number 2 in the polls at the time, and the words Bernie nor Sanders appeared in this entire piece. And these are the vibes I'm getting from this New York Times coverage right now.
Right now, and I mean, the question has been, is Yang going to fall apart? And, going back to the conversation here over this statement, I don't think it's a matter of, voters see that and they understand, what we've just been talking about, or they intuitively dislike that. I mean, most people are not going to be voting on this issue.
Yeah.
It's something that it exposes about his character and that the way he's going to approach these issues, in addition to being, dishonest and morally repugnant. And it's a question of, okay, people are going to start paying attention to this race. Are they going to like what they see? And I think if you're a left voter in New York City, chances are you're not going to like that.
It does feel, I know it's the cravenness of it. I mean, obviously, substantively, our politics are what they are. But I think that your point about what it means about who Yang is and how he makes his decisions, there's an aspect to Yang being easily influenced, as we discussed on our other episode, that is kind of appealing as like, he might listen to the left in a way that other people don't. But obviously what we're seeing manifest is that he listens to these other kinds of interests that will lead him to say a statement like this, which is in many ways out of character of the spirit of who Yang is supposed to be. And so, yes, he's going to take a harder hit for saying this kind of a statement than the cop. Sorry, what's his name again?
Eric Adams.
Eric Adams. And he should. He should. He can't be a vessel for us to project our like lefty desires onto if he's going to say something that's craven.
Exactly. And I mean, it's his SOP in this campaign so far is to just kind of be vague and on the fence about things, and just try to appeal to everyone on the ideological spectrum, and make people think that he's he can be persuaded.
Yeah. Right.
Which is it's getting shades of Biden there, honestly. Yeah. And but this campaign also, I mean, it's feeling a lot more like Bloomberg too, and especially when he's coming down off the fence, like this is the direction that he comes down on.